And we are live. Happy St. Paddy's Day.
Top of the morning to you,
And
or evening, or whatever you are.
And the luck of the Irish and all of the above. So, Martz, let me know when you can refresh and see us so that we make sure we are live on this good old 17th of Ireland, as they call it, Liverpool.
17th of Old Ireland.
There we go. Yes, we are. We are.
Hello, folks.
We are streaming. We are on. Jolly good.
Yeah.
So today's guest, I haven't seen Bill in person for quite a few months. So we called the other day to just catch up, and I thought, my God, why haven't we had Bill Lynch on TeaFlix? Fascinating man, amazing guitarist, musician, philanthropist, recovering club owner, as one would say. So our guest today, Bill Lynch, was born in Lawton, Oklahoma, into a military family. Bill grew up everywhere from Tokyo to London and across the continental USA. Whilst living in England when the Beatles were still playing in Hamburg and Liverpool, Bill picked up the guitar at age 11 and he's never put it down, which makes it difficult in the shower. He played in bands throughout high school and college before leaving the Department of Visual Art at the University of Kansas to pursue music full-time. His first serious band, called Together, opened for Vanilla Fudge and Johnny Winter and played the 1969 Kansas City Fun Fair alongside Iron Butterfly, the Steve Miller Band, Wilson Pickett, Strawberry Alarm Clock, and the Cowsills. Well,
wow.
There are some bands you don't hear in the same sentence very often.
No.
The band even performed on second base at Kansas City's Municipal Stadium before a Yankees and Royals game. After Together came the band Tide and other projects, including the Bill Lynch Band and a long-running duo with harmonica legend Lee McBee. Lynch and McBee shared stages with Stevie Ray Vaughan, the Fabulous Thunderbirds, Sonny Terry and Brownie McGee, Les McCann, Paul Butterfield, Buddy Guy, and Junior Wells. In '85, Lynch rode a motorcycle to Los Angeles, as you do.
Of course.
Where he soon formed the band Pocket Rocket with Andrew Kastner, David Lee Watson, and Claude Pepper, landing a weekly residency at the famous Josephina's on Ventura Boulevard in Sherman Oaks.
Well, yeah.
When blues harp great John Duke Logan sat in one night, the two launched the side project Logan and Lynch, performing around Southern California and opening for Leon Russell, Edgar Winter, Los Lobos, Taj Mahal, Robin Ford, and David Lindley.
Oh.
Over the years, Bill has also performed with artists including Bonnie Raitt and dear departed B3 genius Mike Finnegan, and his varied career included singing demos for legendary songwriter Jerry Goffin, performing with the Woody Herman Orchestra, appearing on TV in Newcastle with Noel Redding, P.P. Arnold, and Alan Price, and even singing the theme tune for the Showtime sitcom It's Gary Shandling's Show. Bill and his lovely wife Maggie, a life coach and entrepreneur, later decided to give something back to the LA music community by opening the Writeoff Room in Woodland Hills, which quickly became one of the Valley's most respected live music venues and a gathering place for world-class musicians. After COVID closed the club, the Lynches purchased the iconic Oil Can Harry's building in Studio City, reopening the Writeoff Room there 2 years later. The club became known for extraordinary nights of music, from big bands to intimate songwriter shows and surprise guest appearances. One memorable lineup for the Bill Lynch Band featured James Gadson, Abraham Laboriel, Paul Schaefer, Dean Parks, and George Doering.
Name dropper.
Yeah, I'll pick all those names up for you, Bill. Although the venue is now closing and will reopen as the Starlight Cabaret, Bill's impact remains clear. As both a guitarist and venue creator, he helped preserve the intimate live music experience in the burgeoning Los Angeles music scene. So thank you very much for all you've done for music. And now, without further ado, Bill Lynch.
Hello.
Hey there.
Good morning to you, Bill.
You're a legend in our lunchtime.
No one's pinching us today.
No,
That's
no.
right. That's right.
Okay.
So thanks so much for taking the time to do this today.
Oh, this is great. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. So I wanted to start out with a sort of back to the egg question.
Yeah, take us back to the beginning, Bill. What first made you pick up a guitar? And who were the artists that really influenced you most?
Well, my dad was really into music. My grandfather was an opera singer. My dad was a singer. He had a radio show up in Green Bay between World War II and Korea. He was, out of the army for a little bit. He got called up for Korea. And so, we always had music around the house. When I was young, the Nat King Cole had a TV show, and we'd always tune in and check him out and everything. And then I remember, I think I was sick or something, and I was home, and the Everly Brothers were on TV, and I was like, whoa, listen to these guys, you know. And I think they were on like 2 days in a row or something. I was really young at the time, so I can't remember, but I remember thinking, man, this is like kind of a cool thing to do. And then when we moved to England, I was 9.
Wow.
And we went to a summer camp out near in the Salisbury Plain out there somewhere. And this camp counselor had a guitar, and we're sitting around the campfire, and he's strumming these tunes. And I just remember when he put it down, when it kind of hit this log, it made this sound. I thought, man, I got to get one of these things, you know. And then I had a couple of friends at school. I went to school in Chertsey, and there were these guys who were a few years older than me, and they had a band. And I went and saw them play, and then they played at school once, and they were playing electric guitars. And I just thought, man, I got to get one of these. And I did. And then that was pretty much the end of any other endeavors for me. It was like,
right. I mean, you were probably too young at 9, 10, 11 to have done the girl math, you know, have guitar will get girl, right?
No. Well, I remember we stayed at an old hotel in London before we left England. We were like at a place called the Cavendish Hotel. It was an ancient.
Oh, yeah.
Very nice.
And you know, I remember looking out the window. There was this guy, like a gypsy, on the street with a mandolin, and he was like playing, and people were opening windows and throwing coins to him. And he had this look on his face like he was the happiest guy in the world. And I remember thinking, man, this guy's happier than any of the adults that I know. You know, he was probably homeless or something, but I remember thinking, man, this music is like a really great thing to do, you know.
Well, it sure is. I mean, it still is today. It really is the thing that, you know, unites the world. It doesn't matter where you're from or what religion or what political stripe or what have you, that, you know, music is a truly universal language. I tell the story sometimes. I was sitting on a panel for emerging artists and talent in music, EDM in Vegas. And one of the panelists, who shall remain nameless, but you could look him up, he had just sold mp3.com for like $600 million. He launched mp3.com so people could upload their music. And I thought, what an altruistic thing to do, burn all those servers and spend all that money, and people can upload their music for free, and it's a discovery platform, whatever. So I said to this chap, I said, wow, fascinating, honored to meet you. What kind of music do you like? And he looked at me and said, I don't like music. I just like money. I was like, what are you made of steel, or did you land from another planet? I've never met anybody who A, would admit it, or B, actually says out loud they don't like music.
Crazy.
I mean, what would have to be wrong with you? It's insane.
Everything.
But now, speaking of two worlds colliding, how on earth did a boy from a military family, and I know the military has bands and such, but how did you break the mold? Were you expected to go into the military?
Not really.
Well, that's good.
You know, well, see, my dad, he didn't encourage that. You know, I felt like I was in the military. You know, we grew up around, you know, big time generals. You know, General Westmoreland was like my dad's boss a couple times, and he'd be over to the house, you know, and I remember one time I called home and my mom said, you should have been here yesterday. You know, she said, Westmoreland was over and he and your dad were down in the basement, you know, and she said, I heard him yelling and stuff, you know. She said, every now and then I'd hear, Westy, you've got your head up your ass, or, you know, or some kind of thing like this, you know. And she said that when he was leaving, he was like holding the screen door open and he and dad were still yelling at each other. And mom said that he was like 3 sheets to the wind, you know, and the family dog, Casey, this beagle, went over and lifted his leg on Westmoreland on the front porch. Mom was like, oh my God, you know. So anyway. getting back, my dad, he didn't really, he went in as a private, and he got a battlefield commission during the Battle of the Bulge, and he went on to become a general. And I think he was the second general in the history of the Army who didn't go to West Point or OCS.
Wow.
So, he'd say things like, these West Pointers, they've never had a shot fired at him in anger. He was always saying stuff like that,
Right. Never had to crap in the woods.
And then, he gave a speech one time for the heads of like Russian industry and the U.S. or something. And he said, man, I forgot my glasses. And he said, I'm up there looking at this sheet of paper, and he showed me the speech that the government said he said. He said, now read this. This is what I said. And it was like, not the same. He was like, in this musical chairs game they're playing at the Pentagon, it was this kind of stuff. And he was just like going with it. Yeah. Yeah.
And that was before AI and voice changing and deepfake videos and all of that stuff, obviously. Yeah. I mean, it would be hard to fake what somebody said. So, I mean, growing up in England at the time, as I said, the Beatles were between Hamburg and Liverpool. Do you remember being exposed to them as an American kid in the UK before the Ed Sullivan Show? Because that was a big...
No, we came back before the Beatles hit. And when we got back, my brother and I we had this Zenith shortwave radio thing, and we'd be tuning into Radio Luxembourg and all this stuff, Well, when we got back to the States, my brother Mike, he said, man, I heard this tune by these guys from England, the Beatles, and that was the first we heard of them. And, and we were like, yeah, Brits, we were all happy about that, like, oh, this is great, English band.
The fan club. I mean, I bet you never thought, from just picking up a guitar and getting into music that you and Maggie would wind up being owners of this literally legendary. I mean, it's the Writeoff Room and the Baked Potato, right? I mean, these are the clubs that touring musicians coming into town would want to, if they weren't booked there, they'd go hang afterwards and what have you.
Yeah. The Writeoff Room has become something of a legend in the Valley, or it did do. Yeah. What inspired you and Maggie to open the original Writeoff Room in Woodland Hills, was it?
Yeah, well, the very first mention of the idea, we went up to Canada. We were like hiking around at like 12,000 feet or something, huffing and puffing, and we weren't really saying anything. We were just, and finally I said, what are you thinking about? Maggie said, I'm thinking I'm going to hire a couple, full-time people when we get back to LA, because we had a lot of things going. She said, this would be a good thing to do. And then a little while later, she said, what are you thinking? And because I was like deprived of oxygen, I think, I said, I'm thinking about opening a club. And
what could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, well, the thing was, when we got back to LA, maybe a week went by and Mag said, well, how's that club idea coming? And Maggie really didn't let me drop the idea.
Huh.
And really, she had more to do with us doing the club than I did.
Interesting.
I mean, it would, if she weren't around, it never would have happened. I wouldn't have done it. I mean, I meant well, but she just spearheaded the whole thing, and it.
Wow. How did you find the place? How did you find the spot and decide that this was the magic?
Well, oh God, it's a convoluted story. So I throw darts in a league.
Uh-huh.
A sociopath sued the dart league, and all these dart bars closed down. He was threatening everybody. He had a law degree, but he never passed the bar, and he was a dangerous guy. So anyway, one of the two of these guys in the dart league said, well, we're opening our own dart bar, and they got this place out in Woodland Hills. and 2 places next door to it went under. And they said, you know, if you came out here and if we did a venue in these 2 places, you know, because we funded the guys, they came to us and said, would you fund us if we open a dart bar? And we said, yeah. So anyway, they were like, well, these places are empty, you know. So we went out and did this thing. We fixed the place up and you know, we had no cover charge. We paid all the bands out of our pocket, and we were,
God bless you.
it was crazy. Like, I mean,
Hence the name, right?
yeah, we were doing so well, like with all these businesses that we had at the time, you know, that, you know, we were paying all this money to the government, and it was like, well, wait a minute. Couldn't we get this money to musicians by having a club and writing this on, you know, instead of just handing it over?
Right. And create jobs and create goodwill and create music and, you know, create a safe space and have some fun with the money you otherwise would have paid in taxes, right?
Yeah. And so, you know, that's how the whole thing went. You know, I was walking around trying to, you know, I take walks at night trying to come up with a name for the place, you know, and I'm like, you know, you don't want some arbitrary, the Hi Ho Club or something, you know. I'm like thinking, God, you know,
how about the Deprived of Oxygen Lounge?
that might be it. So then one morning I was like, well, what is the place? I went, Writeoff Room, you know.
Yeah.
So
the Writeoff Room.
we
Man,
went with it. Yeah.
that's amazing. So what year did you actually open the Woodland Hills one? When would that have been?
It was 2018 or something like that.
Okay.
And, you know, we went for 2 years and then COVID hit.
Yeah.
And
21.
I think I played there the night before I pulled the plug. It was like you could tell things were
Going down.
ending, you know. So I said, oh, this is it, you know, we're done. And then we, you know, the Oil Can Harry's, which is
Famous. Absolutely.
it's like half a mile away from here. I used to walk by that place. You know, I popped my head in there one time and thought, wow, this place, this is cool, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's
You know,
tiny. Cool.
Eventually it went up for sale, and we, you know, just bought it. You know, we were fortunate enough that we could afford to buy the thing. And then off we went for another, you know, well, then it was 2 years of working on the place.
Right.
And that was like, actually, that thing at least had a linear kind of trajectory about it, you know, where, you know, we could see we're getting there, you know, and then, but once you open the club, then it's like a whole different deal. It's like, how do we get people in here?
Right. Well, and who do you book and how big are their fan bases? And is the band going to do the marketing and all that stuff, right?
Well, and really, you know, we were still we started off, I think we were just paying people, you know, out of
pocket
$1,000 a night, you know, and
that's a lot of money.
It is really for, you know, and then eventually it was like, you know, we really should charge a cover charge, but people, you know, immediately they get like, wow, these money grubbing, you know, it's like, oh, you know, here we are trying to help everybody. And it's like, people are complaining about like the cheapest valet in the valley. And they're like,
yeah.
Oh,
I know. Well, you know, it's no good deed goes unpunished, right?
There's that.
So I mean, but not just owning clubs, but you know, with your bands, as I mentioned at the top of the show, you've shared the stage with some extraordinary players over the years, from Albert Lee to Bonnie Raitt to Billy Preston, and about 100 more. You sent me a list, and I was blown away. Is there one night or one artist that stands out in particular in your memory that's like a golden memory that you still pinch yourself, you can't believe it happened?
Well,
or probably too many of them.
You know, it's funny, the things that mean something to you, you know. You know, if some big shot, you know, gives you a compliment, it's like, oh man, you know, so and so, yeah. But I was playing a gig one time with a band over at the beach, and you know, we took a break, and this African guy comes up to me, and he's like pointing at me like this, and he said, "You've got it, and I know what it is." And I thought, wow, that's kind of cool.
Hopefully he doesn't mean chlamydia.
Yeah. I said, so what is it? And he said, I can pick 2 rocks up off the ground and make music. And then he said, you can too. And I thought, whoa, that was a better compliment than, Huey Lewis telling you that you're great. I don't know. There's something about it. It was like, wow, this is pretty cool thing to say. But I played with Jerry Lee Lewis. I did 3 nights with him up in Tahoe. And he was really great. He wasn't drinking or anything. And he was fantastic. And I didn't rehearse with him.
Right.
The band rehearsed in the afternoon, but he wasn't there. And it was like, well, he might do this, he might do that. You never know what he's going to do.
Right.
So he comes, out on stage there for the show. And he started off, I think he did this Chuck Berry, Sweet Little 16, they're really rocking in Boston. He's off to the races, sings a couple verses. He goes, guitar. And Kenny Lovelace, who was a great guitar player, who played with him for years, he just looked over at me like, have at it, So I'm taking this solo, and out of the corner of my eye, I see Jerry stop playing and spin around on his bench. And I thought, oh no, what's this? And I look over and he's going like this, I thought, oh, saved, And then when we were at the end of the show, we're walking off the stage, and he ran over and got me around the neck, and he said, man, if I could play guitar like you, I'd quit playing piano. And I thought,
wow, now that's a compliment.
Much better than this. Well,
that's wild.
2 nights, the end of the 3rd night, I was talking to him, and he said something like, he said, man, I wish you would have taken more solos tonight. I said, no, man. I said, Kenny was playing great, and he said, oh, I wish you would have taken more. And then he gets this faraway look in his eye, and he goes, John Lennon was a friend of mine. He said, he could rock and roll. And then he looks at me and goes, something about you reminds me of him, man. You can rock and roll. And I thought, wow.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, he was really great. He had a room next to ours. Maggie was in there, and Jerry, I was down in the lobby looking at these 2 guys from Alabama who were unbelievably good in the lounge. And I get back up to the room, and Maggie goes, oh my God, you missed it. Jerry was playing next door. They brought in a piano, and we had a door between the 2 rooms. And so Jerry's in there playing. And so the next night, she said he was singing every tune you could think of. Wow. So the next night, or I guess it might have been, the second night, the 3rd night, I guess I thought, well, I'll just go up and see if he's going to be playing. And sure enough, and it's the craziest stuff. He's doing, see the pyramids along the Nile, and he did, he did some jazz tunes with like rock and roll changes and stuff. It was crazy. But what I remember was at one point, God knows if he was in the dark or what was going on over there. You hear him say, he did a Hank Williams tune. He goes, Hank, where are you tonight? It's the Killer. Maggie and I were like, looking at each other like, whoa.
He's talking to the ghost of Hank Williams. Oh my Lord.
That was great.
Yeah.
He had such energy. It was incredible. I mean, to me, one of the duets that I would have loved to have seen would have been James Brown and Jerry Lee Lewis. I mean, they both had that same raw, crazy energy.
Craziness.
Like, once they got on the stage, nothing else mattered but the music, right?
Oh man, I'd seen him on TV a few times where he was drunk, and I thought, oh man, this guy's like lost it. Yeah. So, but still, when I got a call, do you want to do these nights? I was like, who wouldn't, So I didn't even ask about the money, I just said, yeah, I'll do it, Well, he was just amazing. You know, I was like, oh man, I get it. I did a blues festival with Bo Diddley, and he
Oh
was
my
another
God.
one where he was really sketchy half of the time. But we were playing outside. It was the Sacramento Blues Festival, and we were playing outside. It was raining, and there was like lightning in the distance, and all of a sudden, he put 3 songs in a row together that were so good that I remember the bass player and I looking at each other, and where we could read each other's minds, like, "Oh, lightning's about to strike," and we were like, we were both backing away from him, like, "Oh man, you know, you don't play this good unless you're about to go," you know.
Step away from the cables.
It was like,
Oh,
man, this is it.
it's amazing to me that more with all of these summer outdoor festivals and the rains and stuff.
Oh yeah.
It's amazing to me that more people, more rock stars haven't been electrocuted than they have. I mean, you know, you think rock star small plane, okay, that's legendary. Lots of them have unfortunately been lost in plane crashes. But when you think about, you know, AC DC 240 volt power and in a thunderstorm, not a great place to be.
Oh, I got shocked really bad up in Minneapolis or outside of Minneapolis on this show, and I had held my guitar and touched the microphone. Everything was cool. We did a sound check. We come back out. I walk up and I got about this close to the mic and saw this blue arc that hit me, it like numbed my teeth, and I mean buckled my knees. I was like, wow, man, what was that? And you know, you can, you know, I mean, there was a woman killed not that long ago. She was barefoot on a stage, and
You got to stay grounded. One of my husband's songs. I stay grounded. Hopefully you do.
Yeah, there was a band called the Nighthawks.
Oh yeah.
And I used to do, you know, we did some gigs with them, and then we saw them, and the bass player had crutches, and I was like, what's this about? He got zapped so bad that it collapsed the arteries in his hips, and he had to kind of he was almost killed. I think the harp player kicked a mic stand out of his hand or something, and he got electrocuted.
Oh my Lord. It sounds a bit like Spinal Tap's drummers, doesn't it?
It does.
The most dangerous job in rock and roll. Boy. So once you got on these circuits, you know, you drove a motorcycle out to LA, you formed your band, you formed your bands, you formed your duos. Once you had done that, did you pretty much stay anchored to Los Angeles, or did you still go out on the road on calls with bands of people?
Yeah, I mean, I'd go back to Kansas a few times a year, you know, and those gigs were great. And then Mike Finnegan joined us, and, you know, we had a lot of those runs. One time I went to Hawaii, and a friend of mine was living over there, and I ended up playing a gig I had George Benson's rhythm section.
Wow.
And did 2 nights at the end of the trip and kind of paid for, you know, it was like a good thing. And then a friend of ours named Charles White, he had a show on the BBC Radio York, and he was he wrote the official biography of Little Richard.
Okay.
The Quasar of Rock, you know, the life and times of Little Richard, Quasar of Rock. And he also wrote a book on Jerry Lee. And he was having a TV show. That's when I went over and, you know, played some with Noel Redding and all that. He called me up and said, you know, why don't you come over and, you know, get in the band on my TV show? So I did that, you know.
How fun. When would that have been? About what year? 80s?
No, it was in the 90s, I think.
80s and 90s. Okay. Very cool. I mean, you know, we've undergone so many, I mean, music is still the anchor, but we've undergone so many changes, haven't we?
Oh, yes. I mean, you've seen the music industry change dramatically, haven't you?
Oh, yeah.
How do you think the culture of live performances have changed since you started playing?
Well, people don't go out to see bands like they used to, you know. In the Midwest, you know, if we played out in, Waukene, Kansas or something, half the town showed up. People would come from little farm towns, and it was kind of an event.
Right.
And now there just aren't venues. Back, I was really lucky because in the 70s, all these little towns around Kansas and Nebraska, they had theaters like that from the 20s, this kind of thing.
Yeah.
And now they're all kind of torn down, or they're like.
There's a little one in El Segundo, the old timey music hall, and it's like a 280 seater, and it's got a Wurlitzer and a little stage, and it's just it's a nonprofit, and it makes it by donations. But you're right. I mean, you could literally go anywhere across the country. Same in Europe. All of the pubs would have live bands, and they're all corporate Weatherspoons pubs now, and you order off the menu on the iPad on the table, and it's just not the same. But I mean, with audio, I think the pendulum is swinging back, fortunately, away from MP3s to vinyl. I mean, hopefully we'll see people wanting to go to, more intimate and local shows. One of our, as we know, one of our mutual friends, Nick Marischal, great band. I mean, he has John Ferraro on drums, Greg Matheson on B3, Quinn Johnson on piano, Travis Carlton, Larry's Kid on bass, and Nick himself. And, when we would go and film him and create all of his videos for his website and stuff, we would get to see some incredible bands at the Canyon Clubs and at the Writeoff Room and what have you. I just don't understand why people don't get it. I mean, is it in the marketing?
I remember there was some statistic like from last year around the Grammy time. They said that something like of the top 200 songs on the charts, there were only like 3 bands. Everything else was like solo artists. It's like, 3 bands. That's it.
Taylor Swift, Beyonce, and
it's like bands kind of don't exist. Certainly not like they did. When I was in high school, there was a band at every block.
Right. Well, and I think that's evidenced in seeing, guitar centers close, and Sweetwater's gone completely digital and what have you. But I'm really seriously hoping that with this generation Alpha, that they'll find a fascination in mom and dad's vinyl record collection and the hi-fi, and they'll want to pick up an instrument and learn it, because there's just nothing like sitting in a club listening to live music. It's just this organic wave of love that washes over you. I'm an old hippie, but I can't describe it any other way. So in this era of, we're not sure if people are craving live music anymore or not, you and Maggie have decided to opt out of the Writeoff Room, which is a damn shame. But on the bright side, Walter and his lovely bride are taking it over. Tell the crowd a little bit about what's next for the Writeoff Room, ex Oil Can Harry's, what was it, the Zomba Room?
The Zomba Cafe. Well, the upstairs we called the Zomba Lounge, because it was the Zomba Cafe back, in the heyday before Oil Can Harry's.
Isn't there before you go on? Isn't there a Mickey Rooney story about the Zomba Cafe?
Yeah, I think Mickey Rooney proposed to a stripper down there one night.
Oh, of course.
I had heard tell when I was privileged enough to be given my private tour of the Writeoff Room by one Bill Lynch.
Oh yeah,
because the first story he tells me is like, do you know Mickey Rooney proposed to a stripper? Proposed to a stripper.
Of course he did.
But sorry, I digress. When we
walked out and met Walter and Katie, Katie Cazorla is a comedian, and she has the energy of like the Kansas City Chiefs from 2 years ago. That's this kind of thing. And she's just this unstoppable force, and she's got great vision. So wait till you see this place. They completely changed the inside.
Wow.
Like we had a bar, we built this big bar thinking that maybe there'd be people sitting in there late at night. That never happened. We, at the end of the shows, that was it, So they took out the huge bar that we had and made this service bar. They added 30 more seats. And they're padded seats, you know, it's like
comfy.
And the place is this gloss black thing. It's just really amazing. They did a way better job. The green room off the stage, they took one of the stalls from the women's room and made it a bathroom for the green room. You know, they've done all this
smart
over there.
Yeah.
And they broke into this room on upstairs that we'd never seen. There was this obvious room that if you went out on the roof, you're like, what is this? You know, well, they had blocked it off years ago, maybe in the 60s or something. And I told Katie about it. I said, yeah, you know, there's a room that no one's been in. And she was like, where is it? You know, so
give me a sledgehammer.
Took her out on the roof. I said, there it is. And she's like, wow. Well, the next day I go down there and they busted down the wall.
Cover me, I'm going in.
So now there's a green room for the upstairs, you know.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Oh yeah, and they built a little stage so they can have, upstairs holds about 50 people, and they can do comedy upstairs now.
Great.
And I don't know if I should be saying this, but they're planning on opening in May.
Okay.
And the way it's looking, their opening act is Dave Chappelle.
Jesus. That will be incredible.
So that's ridiculous.
Wow. So are they going to do music downstairs, comedy upstairs, or just a combination of both depending upon who's available?
Oh, you know, they had this Kookaburra club in Hollywood.
Okay.
And Maggie and I went, they invited us over there and it was great. They had comedians interspersed with magicians, and it was like really great. So they'll have a lot of fantastic stuff.
Wow.
And Walter Afanasieff is a record producer. You know, he's a big deal. And,
well, I'd love to have him with them on the show when they're ready to talk about opening the club.
Oh yeah, you want to get Katie on.
Yeah.
You know, she will blow your mind. It's
cool.
Like,
love women.
She is unbelievable. I swear to God. You know, she's kind of almost like a singular person in the world with this much energy that she channels and gets things done. It's crazy.
Should we just rechristen her Hurricane Katie?
I'm telling you.
And maybe they should have a cocktail called the Hurricane Katie. There you go.
Not a bad idea. Yeah. Yeah, they're fantastic. So this is good.
This is, yeah, I mean, but you must miss it. Must have been a hard decision to make, because I mean you made it once in Woodland Hills and twice.
It wasn't difficult at all because Maggie came home from the office like 3 weeks in a row, just going, oh man, this is so much work, you know. And it's, you know, we have a whole lot of things going. We own some, you know, properties, and we built shopping center. We did a bunch of stuff. We have a children's vitamin company. And if this is all the work that has to be done, this much of it was the Writeoff Room.
Oh my God.
And it was just wicked. And so Maggie come home going, oh my God, this is so much work. She was writing the checks and, you know, insurance and taxes and
the health department,
all of this. And I just said, I'm not putting you through this anymore. We're not doing this, you know, so.
Yeah.
Well, it has to be, you know, there's always risk versus reward versus hard work in any business. But if you're truly upside down in your life work balance, it's the definition of madness, isn't it? Keep doing something and keep coming home going, Jesus, I'm knackered.
It was just, I felt so bad, you know, the first time she said, oh my God, this is a lot of work.
Right.
Like, geez, you know, it's because of me, you know, basically.
Well, it's always all your fault. We all knew that going in. Come on now.
Yeah.
So, back to your music stuff. One of our dear departed friends was Billy Preston. How'd you get to meet Billy, and what's that story?
Well, oddly, I did a gig on the 3rd Street Promenade, you know, which is now a ghost town, apparently.
Yeah, it's a no-go zone.
And I was playing with Teresa James,
Okay.
and we're playing, and I'll look over and here's Billy Preston comes walking up. And it was like, holy crap, Billy Preston.
Wow.
So Teresa was like, yeah, get up and play some. So he got up and played with us. And he was such a great player. I mean, I found myself in the middle of tunes thinking, what was that he just played? What was that passing chord? Man, that was the hippest thing. He was fantastic. I mean, I felt really lucky to be able to play.
He was a lovely man.
Lovely guy.
And dare I say, when George brought him in, the Beatles were at a very, very stressful point. And I think with Billy's happy-go-lucky, sunny nature and countenance, he probably gave us more months life in the Beatles than without Billy. I think he sort of was able to reason with them all and cheer them up and be everybody's friend and nobody's enemy. And he had a rare quality.
The stuff that he played on those things was just, it made the records,
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I have the unfortunate or fortunate distinction of being the very last person to interview him before he died. Our dear friend Joyce Moore was his manager, and he was starting to go into kidney failure, which was ultimately, what got him his renal situation. And he lived very close to us in Baldwin Hills over here by the Fox Hills Mall. And she said, Billy's having a good day today. Can you race over there with a camera and whip some questions out of your back pocket and get it on film? And so we have the footage of Billy and I just talking. I was like 6 or 7 when I met him, and going back to the old days and, talking about what the hell was it like to be on the roof at Apple, of all the gin joints in all the world, right? But he was such a lovely man, and he lived with his mom, who had a collection of fabulous wigs, not unlike
this is mine,
no, yeah,
not hers.
Yeah. And we walked into the house. He had his studio all built out in the garage. The garage was all locked down and everything. And we walked into the house, and she had sort of a cross between a Barker lounger and a hairdresser's chair in front of the TV with like a big dome hood thing on it. So if she wanted to put her rollers in, and all around the room, decorated in all of the bookshelves, were these wig heads with all of her wigs on them. I'm like, okay, are we shooting in here? Because that was the funniest thing ever. But we had a few hours with Billy, and then I went to Cedars-Sinai in Beverly Hills to say goodbye and everything. But what a gentleman! What an absolute gentleman!
Yeah, I got a chance to meet Little Richard. Well, Charles White, is Dr. Rock. He was visiting us, and he said, let's go over into Hollywood and, see Little Richard.
Right.
So we went over there. He was staying he lived at the Hyatt on Sunset, and he had 2 rooms on the lowest balcony on the right, and so we get in there, and we waited for like 2 hours, and his brother finally comes down and says, Richard will see you now. And we're like, okay, so we go up there, and it was crazy. I think he was cleaning the place up was what the deal was, because when we got there was like a pile, like a 2-foot tall pile of sparkly boots in one part of the room, and a pile of sparkly clothes in the other part of the room. Everything else was like perfect. And he had porch set up in there, and we were talking to him, and I remember he was such a character. Like I said, so what are you up to? And he said, oh, I'm going up to San Francisco to open up for Huey Lewis and the News. I said, God, they should be opening up for you,
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, they just put out an album. I heard it, and it was a bunch of old rock and roll tunes. And he's like, what kind of stuff? And I said, oh, like Walking to New Orleans. And he goes right to the piano. Did they do it like this? I'm walking to New Orleans. It was like, he couldn't wait to perform. And then when he'd start talking about stuff that bugged him, he'd get you to go, yeah, and then he'd talk some more. And yeah. And then it was like this call response church thing going on after a while. So Richard, he was wild.
That's funny. Another one of those legends is Ray Charles, of course. And Billy Preston told us this story on our interview. He lived in the same neighborhood in Crenshaw, Baldwin Hills area. And little Billy Preston, was singing in church since he was like 6 or 7 years old. I mean, a lot of that era of folks came up in the church music. And they used to ring Ray Charles's doorbell and run away. They play the, ring and dash game. And Ray Charles got so sick and tired of this at like 3:45 every day. One day he's waiting right behind the doors because he knows these little tykes are going to ring the bell, right? And so they ring the bell and Billy's friends all run away and Ray Charles yanks open the front door and Billy's like, Mr. Charles, I'm little Billy Preston and I do an incredible impression of you. So would you like to hear it? And he says, that's okay, kid. We only need one Ray Charles, and shut the door. And he was like sitting there peeing his pants because Ray Charles, and of course Ray Charles is looking here and Billy's down here. That's just, oh God. But they don't make them like that anymore, do they, Bill?
No, they don't.
The old guard, unfortunately. I mean, you have your Benson Boones and your the showmen people, but it's a crazy thing. So we're going to do a quick lightning round of questions. Ange wants to know.
Yeah. Who was your first guitar hero and that you ever tried to imitate?
Style-wise.
Well, because of where we lived, Hank Marvin was a big deal.
Oh yeah.
I remember like Wonderful Land. What a great tune that was.
Yeah.
Gosh.
I mean, I remember thinking, man, Hank Marvin.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Hank Marvin, I think Cliff Richard, and then I think Summer Holiday and all of the pop tunes. But even the tone, do 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 do.
Yeah. Oh, he was really a great player.
Yeah. Interesting. Very underrated in the States. I mean, I'd be surprised if anybody had ever really heard of him over here.
Mm-hmm.
What was the best jam session you ever witnessed at one of your write-off rooms that, happened like after a show and just took your breath away? Or
We had a lot of great things.
And was Finnegan's B3 involved?
Yeah, Finnegan's B3, is still there.
That's beautiful.
And I think I'm going to leave it in there for Walter.
Oh, really? That's amazing. When we so backstory while Bill thinks about the jam session, we were lucky enough, Bill and Maggie let us film some music videos for Nick Marshall at the Writeoff Room during the day. And Greg Matheson, the legendary B3 player, is like, oh well, I'll have to call my guys, Joanne and them, and get the B3. And Bill said, oh no, we have a B3 at the club. I mean, how many clubs have their own B3? None. And not only is it a B3, but it's Mike Finnegan's. How did that come about? How did you come to wind up with that when he passed?
Well, he got it from the Tonight Show. Like when the Tonight Show closed, some guy over there called him and said, there's a B3 over here. Maybe you want it. One thing led to another. So the Leslie had, and I think the bench has NBC TV stenciled on it, and the Leslie has the Gong Show written on it in magic marker or something.
Oh, no.
So it was an NBC B3. And then Mike, he had a few around town. Johnny Lee Shell has one of an A100 of his, and his son Kelly, who's great. Kelly's got a couple of them, and then this was one I think that he used to record a lot around, LA. And then, Candy called me up and said, do you want Mike's B3? And I'm not a keyboard player. I'm like, and she said, what, I'm going to sell it? She said, no, I'm giving it to you. Writeoff Room. There's a plaque on it down there that says, that it was Mike Finnegan's Hammond organ, and it said, "Who knew he'd be such a big organ donor?"
Oh, but that is so Finnegan, right?
Yeah, Candy put that on. The family put that on there. It was
Beautiful.
great. And
That's beautiful. And so it's found a permanent home at.
Well, yeah. I mean, for now,
You never know. You might spark the world's first stand-up comedian who also plays B3.
Well, that Robinson guy plays keyboards. You know him?
That's true. Yes, he's funny.
So you never know.
He's very funny. So as far as repertoire.
Yeah, what's one song that always gets a room full of musicians smiling when somebody starts playing it?
Hard to say. I mean, there are some funny songs out there. But I don't know about that.
I think, from my perspective, obviously being Beatles heavy, it would be All You Need Is Love, because everybody knows it. Kids can sing along, and it truly is really, and music, and
Well, when I was in high school, I mean, the Beatles were a big thing to me. The band I had in high school, we played all sorts of stuff. Our keyboard player was in the high school band. He played clarinet. We did When I'm 64. And I would bet, that no bands were playing something like that at the time.
No.
Another thing was that this band together, when I was in college, when we opened up for Vanilla Fudge, it was at the Memorial Hall in Kansas City, Kansas. And we did Blackbird right after the record came out. Like Terry Gurkovich, who was the guitar player, the main guitar player in the band. I was like playing rhythm and singing. He copped the whole thing within days. We had this show coming up. I sang the thing. He played guitar. We probably were the first people on the planet that played that song in front of an audience. I mean, I can't imagine how that wouldn't be the case.
Yeah.
When you think about it, it was like a couple days after the record came out. We played that in front of a few thousand people in Kansas City.
Oh.
And you've just named two songs. The first one was written for my dad and his husband. And the second one, Blackbird, is dedicated. We have the original cassette demo of Paul, and it's dedicated to my grandmother, Edie, her mom.
Wow.
Yeah. I know, crazy, right? The two songs you just picked out of the sky draw a direct line to my dad and my grandmother. So that's
you go.
That's how powerful music is.
Yeah.
And that's why it's such a shame it's being pulled out of schools and stuff, but we won't get into the politics of it all. But if there are any young people out there watching, learn an instrument. It's good for your brain. It's good for all of the synapses and the neurons and
it helps you to pick up girls for a young man.
Or a girl who likes
girls.
Who kissed a girl and she likes it. Yes, exactly. Bill, if you could sit in on guitar with any band in history, past, present, who would it be?
Oh man.
If you this is why it's called a lightning round, because lightning has to strike you to come up with it.
I loved Mose Allison. I don't know if you Mose Allison, and somehow I got his phone number. Bonnie Raitt introduced me to him years ago, and then I see him from time to time. And my family went to see him at the not the Cellar Door, a Blues Alley in D.C. He was playing there, and we all went down there. And I went back and talked to him a little bit. Well, eventually I had him on the phone. Maggie came home from work one time, and I'd been talking to him for like half an hour. Yeah. And she, I was like, oh,
wow. He was writing it on a piece of paper.
I loved his whole trip. Like his songwriting was just brilliant, I thought, and just the style that he had. He was like not like anyone else, which is really hard to do, obviously.
Yeah, no kidding. When you think there's only 8 whole notes in the Western scale.
Yeah, and I mean, most musicians are trying to be someone else. They really are. They're trying to be some hero of theirs, you know.
Mm.
Interesting. I tell you who else is truly original, sort of that vein, but not really, that I'm a big fan of, Cab Mo.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It's, you know, I think he's found a niche that is just, he's Cab Mo, and that's it.
Yeah, he is, yeah.
You take it or leave it. And that was kind of the same way to me with Mose Allison, was like, you got him or you didn't. And he didn't really care either way.
Yeah.
That's
And, you know, his wife told me that he never had a manager, or like his whole career was, he did from other people going, oh, you should play this club, you know, there's this kind of thing. He never really had any management or any, you know.
Wow. Well, I mean, there are still folks out. I mean, Tommy Emmanuel has a manager now, but for years and years, Tommy Emmanuel would just, you know, he'd play one place and somebody in the audience would say, oh, I know a guy who knows a girl who you should this and that and the other. And, you know, got out of Australia and into Nashville and then on and on and on. So, you know, for anybody watching out there who is like, oh, I'm a great musician, but I don't have a manager, you don't necessarily need one, especially with the internet tools today.
Yeah.
If you're good, believe in yourself. Just keep doing it, right?
Yeah, you know, my folks lived in Alexandria, Virginia, and my dad retired out there. And I used to make trips out there, and I played a club in Georgetown called Desperados, and it was a great place. And I went down there with my sister to see Duke Robillard, I think, Room Full of Blues. And they said, you know, tomorrow night, you know, we've got, you know, this guy, Stevie Vaughan and Double Trouble, you know, and Luann Barton was singing with him. And so he says, we're going to have them come out. They were there, you know, and play so you can see what's happening tomorrow. Well, Luann, you know, short little skirt. She was gorgeous. Cigarette in one hand, a drink in the other, you know, y'all to see my baby. You know, she was like this fantastic, you know. And of course, Stevie, you know, he was great. So we came down the next night. My sister and I thought, we got to come back for this, you know. So we came back the next night, and, you know, I told him, I said, you know, you ought to play up in Lawrence, Kansas. You know, I can get you booked up there. You know? So he gave me a tape, and I didn't even need that. You know, they listened to me down there. You know, I said, oh, you need to get this guy up here.
Right.
And so he came up, and he didn't have a crowd because no one knew who he was. So, but then he came and played with us later. We did an after hours thing, and
wow,
it was like, you know,
magic.
He was a sweet guy. You know, he came by the next day with a ball and 2 gloves, and we were like throwing, you know, playing catch, and
wow,
and, you know, it was crazy, playing guitars and stuff. We did other dates with him later, you know, and he was a friend of mine.
I mean, you've obviously, you know, you not only have, and Maggie have been blessed with talent and very good fortune in businesses, but it's all from, you know, hard work and honesty and graft and not grift. And so it's so wonderful to see a couple like you who have been able to, you know, work hard and pay back, but also pay it back into the arts and into music by having your talent and having your clubs and having the time and a couple bucks to spend on, you know, supporting artists and getting them booked and getting Stevie Ray Vaughan booked and opening clubs and paying people out of your own pocket. So I think you're an absolute star. I've always been a Bill Lynch fan, and I am even more so today.
Well, I'm a Maggie fan, you know. I mean, yeah. Maggie, you know, she is the most giving person that I've ever encountered, I think, you know, and you know, you know who Bumps Blackwell was? He was Little Richard's producer. He, you know, wrote stuff with Little Richard. Bumps was amazing.
Oh, wow.
Bumps had a band in Seattle, I think, with Ray Charles and Quincy Jones both in it, it seems.
Oh my God. Why did they call him Bumps?
Yeah, I was just wondering that.
Bumps Blackwell, he was he had a little doily that had long, tall Sally. Well, I think it was. Anyway, it was some of us saw Aunt Mary coming in. They ducked back in the alley.
Wow.
On a little doily that he got from an Nostris Johnson, who wrote the original idea, and she walked to, I think, New Orleans or something. Hello.
No, sorry.
She walked to New Orleans and got this thing to this honey child. She was a DJ, I think, and said, "Could you get this to Little Richard?"
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, "What is this?" It's a song I wrote, and it was just this one little part of the tune. And so she called Richard and was like, "Oh, this young girl, walked all the way, And so he and Bumps wrote Long Tall Sally from this little, thing that he had written on a doily.
Jeez,
And,
that's crazy.
So Maggie knew Bumps Blackwell, and Bumps was going blind, and Maggie moved him and his mother to various places in LA before he died. So she used to waitress at the Whiskey.
Oh, wow.
Wow. But you're both involved, not just in good works of music, but
you're involved in several non-profits, I hear. Can you give us a quick rundown?
Who are some of your favorites? If some of our listeners are looking for, a tax write-off or somewhere to donate to that really does the work, who do you guys
Well, the
love?
Ms. Foundation for Women is a big one.
The Ms. Foundation, yeah.
And we're been donors for years and years to that. And Gloria Steinem one time spoke at our house. It was fantastic. She was great.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so
that's great.
That is a good one. And the Trust for Public Land, we're donate to them out here, and they do a lot of good things.
Yeah. I love these smaller foundations. I mean, not to take anything away from anybody in nonprofit, because it's really hard work, but it seems to me the higher up the ladder you go with the big branding, they have to pay for TV advertising, and they have to pay for, security for their board, and they have a lot of extraneous expenses that some of these boots on the ground people, I would call them, don't do. So thanks for sharing those with us, because if anybody wants to look up Trust for Public Land or the Ms. Foundation, those are obviously Lynch approved nonprofits. So thanks for sharing that. You know what? You ought to write a book.
I was just going to say that. You ought to write a book.
You ought to write a book and put QR codes.
I wonder who could help me with that.
Let me think. I don't know. But today being St. Patrick's Day, and Angie being the lady of the limericks, she has her both softback, so you can carry it with us. And this book is called and Dr.Angie McCartney's Liverpool Limericks and Other Random Irish Haikus. And so this takes you from it's all about the 60s and Liverpool and all Carnaby Street and Twiggy and the Beatles and George Martin and
Frida Kelly
and Yoko Ono and everything. So
I met Frida Kelly. I met her. I met the two of you at that auction over in Beverly Hills for
Ringo's drum kit. Yeah,
Ringo's drum kit. Yeah, that one. And and Frida was there, and
that's right.
I tapped her on the shoulder. I couldn't believe it. Oh my God, Frida Kelly. I've met everybody and didn't think a thing of it. And when I saw her, I was like, oh Lord, and I tapped her and I handed my phone to my buddy. And as she turned around, I said, I love you. And the look on her face, he snapped a picture that's just fantastic.
I'll send her an email. And
send it to Angie.
I'll send that to you. Yeah,
and I'll send it to Frida. We're in touch every week.
Yeah, she and Angie are pen pals. They write each other these long.
Well, Maggie and we went to Liverpool one time, and we arrived on our anniversary, which was the anniversary. It was July 6th.
Oh. Yes,
the anniversary of when Paul and John met.
at St. Peter's in Walton. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
50s.
it was
Wow.
like, and it was just happenstance, it was like,
Yeah.
wow, we went by your house, by the way, the old.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Funny. That's
Yeah.
wild. That's wild. That's wild.
Right.
So anyway, in your honor, Angie's put pen to paper. And if you are sitting comfortably, we shall read you your limerick.
Jolly good.
Jolly good. You count it in at your speed you want.
Okay. 1, 2, 3.
There once was a muso named Bill, whose write-off rooms featured great skill. Though the curtain must fall on that musical hall, the memories live on in us still. Should we do that again?
Yeah, we should do it again. I forgot to clean my glasses.
And a 1, 2, 3.
One more time.
There once was a muso named Bill, whose write-off rooms featured great skill. Though the curtain must fall on that musical hall, the memories live on in us still.
Ta-da!
Oh,
That was a
I
little
won't give up my day job.
what can I say? Oh, Lord. Well,
That was
this was
great.
a lot of fun. This was great.
It was. Thanks so much for taking the time. Give my love to Maggie, and
Mhm.
let me know so I can let the viewers and listeners know when the Starlight Cabaret is opening, and we will.
You bet.
Really love
We'll
to give
promote
them
the crap out of it for you.
promote the crap out of them. In the words of Lady Dame Dr. Angie, promote the crap.
Great.
All right, kids, we'll see you all of a sudden next week. You keep your kettles on and your corkscrews handy, and we'll see you all of a sudden.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining. And hit the subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube. See, I had to go there.